So we'll get started pretty soon here. Let's try and put you on something new. Hello and welcome to my 5 top tips video for the 2.3 update and the Ancient Relics DLC for Stellaris. I'm really enjoying the content so far. I think it's really interesting. Oh, I can't say that actually. It sounds like a review. Hello and welcome to my Stellaris 2.3 up. No, that's not right. Hello and welcome to my 5 top tips video for the Stellaris 2.3 update and the Ancient Relics DLC. I've been playing it quite a bit today and I feel like I have a decent grasp on how it works with this nation here. But I've only had a couple days to play around with it, so there's probably some stuff that I have missed. But there are a lot of really important changes, and I'm thinking that is going to change a lot of people's strategies, and not just single player but multiplayer, with a lot of the changes to things like megastructures and precursors. Like the way people usually approach them, it's going to be very, very different. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into my first tip, which is to save influence. In the past, it was not very useful to save more than 100 or 200 influence, and spending all of that to get down to 0 wasn't a pretty big deal because you didn't have a lot of things that you needed to spend it on. With the most recent patch, you're going to be spending influence on relics and megastructures and habitats a lot more than you used to in the past. When you go into relics, you've got these activation costs, which are very, very powerful. If you're lucky enough to get the Galatron, this is the first time I've actually seen it / gone it, and it's super powerful. +3 passive influence. It stacks up over time, and on top of that, every 10 years you can trade 150 influence for basically 5,000 alloys. It doesn't tell you exactly what you're going to get, but I've clicked it probably 6 times and gotten the alloys 5 out of the 6. So very, very useful and definitely worth spending the influence on. While it may make sense to try and grab as much territory as possible with your influence and try and get some artifacts, maybe some excavation sites, I find that saving it for like the mid to late game is really important. If you can build yourself some habitats, you can get a lot of very nice research very quickly. I was looking at the numbers here, and these researchers that you get from your research orbital habitats are super, super nice. So it is definitely worth investing in habitats, spending some influence on like 1 or 2 before you can get your megastructures up and running. But yeah, given how much easier it is to build them, and I think how much more powerful they are, I'm pretty sure the Dyson Sphere here got a pretty big buff, like ×4. So I would recommend spending influence on that type of stuff. Tip number 2 is it's easier to build megastructures, which we were just talking about, but it's even easier than you may be thinking at this point. If you are really willing to focus on it and spend your unity on it, you can get Architectural Renaissance to give yourself +1 build capacity. The build speed's super nice, but the +1 build capacity means that you can build 2 megastructures side by side instead of just 1 at a time, and that is it's very useful when you're trying to get all of them up and running at the beginning, because while you may not need like 5 ring worlds at this point in the game, you probably want to have a Dyson Sphere and a matter decompressor, and waiting to choose. If you have to choose which one you're going to go for first and which one you're going to wait for, it's not as good as if you can just simply pour all your resources into those. You can either get your +1 build capacity through this Unity ambition, or in the traditions perks, you can go in here and grab an extra +1 build capacity, which is going to last forever because it's not a Unity ambition. It's not going to time out. So you can actually get 3 megastructures going at the same time, and I think I'm currently doing that in this game. I have my first ring world. Oh right, I was going to spend some resources on this. I can get that one going because I have the resources for it. We have this guy going, so yeah, we can do 3 things at the same time. Pretty nice. And yeah, it allows you to get your stuff earlier if you have the alloy income, if you're lucky enough like I was, and you get something like the Galatron, or maybe you're in a multiplayer and you can trade with some people. You can invest in mega structures a lot quicker, not just earlier in the game, but you can do more of them at the same time. So let's move on to the next tip. It is harder to go wide in the beginning of the game, and it's easier to build tall. With the changes to habitability, it doesn't make as much sense to grow too much outside of your initial starting area. You want to have planets that are your type, and if you can terraform some bigger planets to house your people, that makes sense, but it's not as useful of a strategy as it used to be. Now it makes more sense to kind of stay in your own space, build up your Unity, build up your technology, and then you can take advantage of that later in the game. With habitats being more useful and than they used to be, you'd probably want to save up some of your influence instead of building out into other systems on your habitats. Yeah, I mean, it kind of explains itself. I think a lot of these relics definitely benefit smaller empires more than others. Like this surveyor, it just puts a resource inside your space, and if you have a smaller amount of space, that will be a higher percentage of your income. And I think that with the buffs that they put on mega structures and habitats, that they were trying to make it easier to build taller in this version of the game. That may not stay the same. There may be other things that I'm not thinking of that make it easier to build taller, but those are just like the initial things that come to mind after playing this for 8 hours today. Minor artifacts. So it took me a while to actually find the minor artifacts tab. I found it underneath the traditions tab. If you press F8 and go over to relics down here, that's where your minor artifacts go. I kept seeing that I was getting them when I'd go into my excavation sites. Yeah, see, this one gave me 1 artifact, that one gave me 1 artifact, that one gave me 5. I was like, well, what do I do? You know, like, how do I spend them? Well, if you press F8 and you come in here, you'll have access to some of these, and I think some of them are grayed out. Things like these ones are grayed out until you research the technologies for them. I like spending points on the reverse engineering thing about midway through the game, and also I unlocked something with my precursor using these minor artifacts. You can go into your planets and make them a little bit more productive, but I think it's better to do those bigger investments, the 50 artifact things, because then you can make it so that your planets are more habitable. Where is it? Yurt cleansing. We basically came into our planet and was like, we want to destroy all the we used this. We added +50 devastation, tick down over time, but totally worth the +10% habitability. It means that you don't have to terraform nearly as much, and you don't have to pay the upkeep for negative habitability. As you may have noticed, I'm at 100% habitability on my tundra planets. I think if I click on something that's not my home species, they're pretty happy. You're alpine. They're all alpine. I remember buying a bunch of alpine slaves in your tomb world. Here, you're Arctic, and you're plenty happy. I think we went with the people that were all in that type of thing, so we didn't have to worry about being too much negative modifiers on negative habitability. So yeah, I could have put that in there as a tip. It's like a little sub tip that you get there for getting this far through the video. Oh right, yes, I did want to mention that if you want more artifacts after you've done all your excavations, there is a relic called the Rubricator, which generates 30 minor artifacts for 150 influence. Not that great of a trade, if you ask me. These give you some nice bonuses, but influence is very useful. So I'd rather spend my activation costs on the Galatron, or maybe even this eventually, because minus 20% upkeep on ships, really nice, really nice. So you know, you can balance that based on your situation in the game. All right, last tip is the precursors. They've been buffed a whole lot. This system right here is the home system for the yurt. I unlocked it, which meant I got this relic right here, and I think the precursor ones are going to be slightly better than a lot of the other relics, because there was a precursor that was just easily better than everybody else. The first league, and if you're in a multiplayer and you got the first league, you basically won because you got the Economali, which meant you got the alloys, and that's all you really need to win the game. If you get a giant alloy advantage, there's not a lot your enemy can do to beat you. So they added things like the minus 20% just to even them out. They added 2 more precursors, which I imagine are very powerful because they're new, and new content usually gets a little bit of a buff. But yeah, if you are playing multiplayer, you basically need to rush any precursor as quickly as possible. That seems to be a giant priority. If you want to be able to take advantage of things like this and this, those are really nice resources, really nice things to collect if you can afford to do it. Little stations, I forget what they're called. That's what happens when you play video games for 8 hours. But yeah, that's all I had to say. That's all my 5 tips. I hope you found some of them useful. If you want to play a multiplayer with me, you can join my Discord, which will be in the description below. And yeah, keep an eye out for my future gameplay content. We'll be doing Stellaris, Battle Brothers, and who knows what else. Hope to see you then.